Good evening, dear class, and anyone else who happens to tune in. I want to say a few words about a short passage in T.S. Eliot's celebrated Four Quartets poems. The reason that I'm doing this is partly because this section that I'm going to talk about, some 15 lines, has stayed with me through 60 years, when the rest of the poem, which incredibly I knew by heart, I no longer remember at all. The way it came about was that I met up with a school pal of mine. We both graduated from high school, and we agreed to meet in Rome by the famous Arch of Septimus Severus. And we would set out from there to walk across Italy, across Tuscany and Umbria, and we did. And we went further than that. We walked across these great and famous and beautiful landscapes, and we walked and got bicycles in Pisa on our way across to the Alps, which we ascended by bicycle, hanging on to the backs of trucks who forgave us for clinging to them, and reaching the top, and then had a wonderful 17-mile rolling descent where we didn't have to touch the pedals at all, and cycled down into the south of France and across to the Dordogne, where I ended up in a little village. And to that village I returned year after year. It was a lovely place, and there was one inn there that allowed me to work. Monsieur and Madame Albin, the hosts, the town is called Montpazier. They allowed me to live there cheaply and work in peace and quiet. And I was in my late teenage years and through my 20s, and I got involved in the life of the town. And I played for the local rugby team. And all this was because of a journey that I had made with my friend Richard Fletcher, the historian, now alas no longer with us, but who had introduced me to Eliot's Four Quartets and to James Joyce. We also made some discoveries. Once in an Italian bookstore, we found an Italian translation. Was a really wonderful thing. Just fell upon it to our amazement, opened it to a famous passage in Ulysses, which translated into Italian is illimitabile modalità del visibile, illimitable modality of the visible, which we found staring at us off the page. And we two 17-year-olds were astonished to feel we were chosen by these words. So we memorized the four quartets and recited them to each other, the most pretentious thing you could imagine any two school kids could possibly have done, as we cycled across famous landscapes, keeping alive in our minds the famous lines, which time and memory eventually, as they will, took away from me, and of which are left only the following 15 lines. Garlic and sapphires in the mud clot the bedded axle tree. The trilling wire in the blood sings below inveterate scars appeasing long-forgotten wars. The dance along the artery, the circulation of the lymph are figured in the drift of stars. Ascend to summer in the tree. We move above the moving tree, in light upon the figured leaf, and see upon the floor below the boar hound and the boar pursue their pattern as before, but reconciled among the stars. And somehow, because I suspect quite a lot of young people coming across this passage in the poem, if they get to it, they find it to be singularly clotted in the mud, this gobbledygook, which in a way is perhaps reason enough for it to stick in the memory, in the attempt to make sense of it, which is not made plain in the lines themselves. And so there I was, stuck with this relic, this clotted axle tree in the mud, which has obstinately resisted all removal. It was stuck in my brain. And what an interesting passage of verse it is. Garlic and sapphires, and not the garlic I think you put upon a dish for a table, nor are sapphires those you put upon your lady's wrist, but they are the garlic that grows, the green garlic that grows in the fields, and the sapphires that shine in the mud on a sunny day. And they clot the bedded axle tree, which is bedded in the mud. The axle tree, this piece of metal engine. And this is just an image that sticks there. It doesn't go anywhere. But we do jump to a human image. The trilling wire in the blood sings below inveterate scars. These scars will not be removed. Sings below inveterate scars, appeasing long-forgotten wars. So the scars were meant to serve these wars, and the body still trills beneath the scars, remembering the wars. The drift of the appeasing long-forgotten wars. And now, after 60 years, I've forgotten my lines. The drift along the artery, the drift along the artery, which is the blood, after all, the circulation of the lymph, another function of the body, are figured in the drift of stars. So this is the first statement that the poem makes, creating a cosmic connection. And then we're invited to do something, as opposed to merely respond to a description. Ascend to summer in the tree, it says. I don't know how you do that. We move above the moving tree. I don't know how you do that. In light upon the figured leaf. All leaves are figured with design. And see upon the floor below, and now all becomes clear. The boar hound and the boar pursue their pattern as before, but reconciled among the stars. So their pattern is reconciled, and the many features of this little 15-line section, the clotted axle tree, the scars appeasing long-forgotten wars, all these things are brought together and are figured in the drift of stars, says Eliot, and all is forgiven, something that is a feature of the poem as a whole, that all shall be forgiven. And this is an important feature, the most important feature, I think, of the sacred and religious nature of this particular poem, the forgiveness of all things. And there is much in history to be forgiven, including the long-forgotten wars that are featured under the scars. The trilling wire in the blood, we still feel the trilling wire in the blood. But in the end, when we can get above it, into the tree, I don't know quite how we do this, except that there's a wonderful imagery of rising into summer in the tree and gazing down and seeing the boar hound and the boar as if we were not there, pursuing their pattern as before, but reconciled among the stars. So an enormous cosmic unification there, a cosmic unity and a cosmic forgiveness. I'm sure there's more to understand, or less perhaps to understand, but this is what I'm left with after 60 years of familiarity with this poem. And I dedicate this little video tonight to my youngest daughter, who is just on her way now in the city of Dublin to collect her first major prize. I'm sure it won't be her last as a scholar, and who has put enormous amounts of work, she will be 30 in a couple of days' time, into developing her scholarly prose and her scholarly abilities. And I'm so proud of her for doing so. I think I want to ask people like myself, who are not scholars, barely even journeyman scholars, but who are committed artists. I can claim some 40 stage plays to my credit, and another 40 radio plays, and another 100 television plays, and 12 novels, a whole raft of creative work, but not even a whiff of scholarship, except for this one remembered fragment of T.S. Eliot's poetry, which stands there reminding me perhaps of the scholar I could have been, but at least of the power potentially of scholarship and the power of memory. So God bless Chiara, my youngest daughter, and may this be the first day of many where she receives the reward that she so richly deserves, the praise of her peers, and the pride of her father. I don't think I have anything more to say about T.S. Eliot, although I have delivered the whole of his more than 1,000 lines poem, the Four Quartets. In fact, I've spoken them aloud with a cellist helping me to enable the audience to get through the length of it, and then I've spoken it a second time, and the cellist went to do it one more time. And there was a man at the back of the audience who started to dance, and he danced through the whole thing. I would like to think he was carried away by my eloquence and Eliot's genius. I have a feeling he was perhaps not entirely in his perfect mind, as King Lear says. But that's fine. No one needs to be in their perfect mind, at least not all the time. And there was certainly something both inspiring and minatory, and I don't know, something hard to live up to in the whirling freedom of this chap who I didn't know, standing at the back of the hall and dancing during the long sequences of reciting this 1,000-line poem. God bless him, whoever he was. And I don't know that any of that helped me to understand the poem any better. And must one understand a poem if it takes you by the throat and allows you to remember any part of it? That is an act of love of which one would wish oneself fortunate in the presence of any poem, and to me is dearer than rubies and dearer than understanding. But I have the good fortune to have acquired into my life a daughter who really is so excellent in her understanding that it makes me respect and fall to my knees, metaphorically, before the beauty of scholarship in the hands of a true spirit. Thank you for being with me in this moment of celebration of Chiara Harrison, who is a wonderful scholar and is setting out on what I'm sure will be a wonderful career. All the best, everybody. Thank you.